episode of Coda Country Chats. Today on this episode, we have a Canadian singer this time. This is Paige Rutledge. How are you today, Paige?
Hello. Well, thank you so much for having me. I am doing absolutely wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great. And I just want to inform the listeners, Paige
hmm
released a new single on November 17th called The Worst
Yeah.
Thing. So, Paige, let's talk a little bit about that first because I have a lot that I want to talk to you about. But
Yeah.
let's start off. Tell me about the writing process of The Worst Thing, and we'll get into
Yeah,
it from there. Yeah.
absolutely. So I was actually trying to remember. So I wrote The Worst Thing with two of my favorite people to write with, Lydia Sutherland and Rich Cloak. And what I was trying to remember is we had written, this was either, so I had released a song, Ain't That Bad, like the last November, November 2022. And that was the same writers, the three of us. And I was trying to remember the other day if The Worst Thing was our write directly after we had written Ain't That Bad, or if it was like there was a write in between and then we wrote The Worst Thing. But either way, like the rights were pretty close together. And so I thought that was like kind of interesting. I'm like, huh, we must have just like been feeling something those months writing songs in there. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah. And I think there's something to be said too when you get to write with people often enough and you get to know each other on this like more of a friendship level, you start writing better songs so you can kind of like almost finish each other's thoughts in that
Mhm.
kind of sense. And
Yeah.
so um breakups are obviously something that everybody goes through, and I watch all my friends date and family members and cousins and all that kind of stuff, and obviously it's a very like a topic that comes up quite often.
Yeah.
And so I think like in current dating there's this new like I don't know what to call it, like a trend or like whatever we want to call it, of people just like disappearing or like ghosting or like that, we right, like, and
Yes.
it's not great, like it makes
No.
people feel really bad. And so I've had a ton of those conversations over the past like year and a half now with people that I know. And it's just generally people feel really terrible about it. And it's like you wish sometimes that people were honest or like cheated or had a reason to make you move on. And it's like sometimes when you don't have that reason, like you just sit in your thoughts and you're like, there's literally like you're trapped. And I'm like, that's the worst, like the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like, we were talking about that in the write, and Lydia and I were actually on FaceTime before we were even in the writing session. We were having that conversation. So we're like, okay, let's just like throw that idea around a little bit today. And that's how The Worst Thing came to be. And I think it's funny to me, like not, but it's such like a pop country produced song, but the lyrics are so heartbreaking and sad that it kind of,
I know.
I know. And so, and that was important to me because I love a sad girl song, like don't get me wrong,
Yes.
but I also love, like, it was really important to me that like this was a scream in your car, a volume up song, because it is so relatable, I think. And
Uh-huh.
everyone goes through breakups and everyone wishes they had a reason to hate like an ex or something or have that reason to move on. And I was like, there's nothing I love to do more than sing songs like that in my car with my
Yeah.
friends. So that was how that all came to be.
That totally makes sense, though, now that you say that, because, like, this, listen, as someone in a very committed, happy relationship, it
Yeah.
made me want to scream in my car. Be like,
That makes
why?
me so happy. Right? And like, I don't know, there's something, it's so therapeutic to just like have the volume up so loud and sing your heart out. And I love those types of songs. And I was like, I don't really have any of those breakup songs out there yet that, like I love everything I've released, obviously, but I was like,
Yeah.
this is kind of a different, a new release, a new side of the music. And so I was really looking forward to this song, and I was like patiently waiting for it to come out. So I'm really, really just glad it's out into the world now.
I love that. Well, tell me, okay, so thinking back through all the songs that you've released so far, um,
Mhm.
if there was like a complete opposite of this song, like on the spectrum of like you laid them out on a
Ooh,
timeline and there was like, here is The Worst Thing, what would be the opposite of The Worst Thing in
that's a
your,
great question.
yeah, yeah.
Ooh, I like that. That makes me think.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean, I feel like I have two complete opposites. Like The Worst Thing is so heartbreaking and so sad. And then like I'd say my sassiest song that I have out, like complete opposite, where it's
Yes.
like, like We're Not Being Sad is Broken Record. Because
Yes.
that one's just like a little bop and like a sing along.
Mhm.
But then I guess like a lot of the songs I have released relationship wise, like if we're generalizing that, are typically on the breakup side. Like I don't have any love songs because I love a love song. I just
Yeah.
haven't. I don't know. They're definitely, I don't know if a lot of people feel this way, but I find love songs way harder to
Yes.
write
Yeah.
than breakup songs for whatever reason. But lyrically, like I put out a song earlier this year about losing my grandfathers and experiencing loss. So I'd say like lyrically, those two are complete opposite
Yeah.
as well. But sassy wise, and like if we're keeping in the relationship realm, Broken Record for sure.
Gotcha. And now that you say
Yeah.
that, after listening to that, I'm like, that does absolutely make sense.
It's
So,
sassy. We're not sad in that song.
Period. That's right, girl. Girl empowerment. We are living our lives, and
I'm
yes,
all about that. Those are like my two spectrums, like sad breakup girl songs and like we don't need him songs.
yes, exactly. That's perfect. So,
Yeah.
well, okay, and let's go back. And you just talked about how writing love songs is so. But I feel you. Like it's not
It's hard.
hard. It is hard, but it's like you don't want to be cliche and you don't want to say the same things that everyone
That's
else
the
has said.
thing.
Like it's hard
Yeah,
to find like a new spin on how you say I look. You know what I mean? Um,
totally.
so
And I
like
love,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, I love like writing with other people that come in with these love song ideas and like hearing their stories and like you almost feel inspired when it's somebody else's story because it's almost like it's a piece of vulnerability you don't have to put out about yourself. And I think that's what makes love songs so scary sometimes
Mhm.
because you're like, whoa, like here's all my feelings just like laid out
Coming
into
out,
the
yeah.
world. Yeah. But I love when it's somebody like I love being in the room when we are writing
Yeah.
a love song because they are, you just walk away and you feel so wholesome and happy and you're like, yes, there's so much good in the world.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to come back to this, I think. Let me go back to the
Okay.
worst thing before I forget. Tell me about the
Yes.
recording process and kind of how it went whenever you got in the studio, everything like that.
We did this one slightly, not so much slightly different. Like we had done other tracks like this, but this one was a kind of like a build over the months. Things we've also released songs where we've just like gone into the studio, got everything done in one shot one day and just like did that. But this song definitely had growth
Mm-hmm.
to it. And so I have the first demo that we ever did of it, and I was listening back to it the other day, and I was like, wow, like it's so cool to hear that and you listen. And it was this song, like I said a little bit earlier, is very like I was so patient slash incredibly impatient. I was like, I want this out. Like with anything, right? Like when you love something so much, like you just want to share it with
Yes.
something.
Yes.
But I also recognized that this song meant a lot to me. And I was like, I really want to make sure that when we release this, like we're doing this the right way. And like we're not sitting back and being like, wow, we should have done or like we could have done. So it was definitely like over a span of, I don't even know how many months. I think we started it in I want to say like early, like February. I could be completely wrong. All the months are blended together
Yes,
in my
I get
head.
it.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. But it was a while back. And just making sure that every single detail was so correct. And I put out like as I was putting out Gone Ain't Really Gone, we were still working on that. So I was putting out a song, still working on the worst thing.
Yeah.
And just like making sure that we had the right team working on it and the right musicians and like people that were really gonna, like it's so important and it's such a lovely experience when you get to work with so many different people and you just know like that like this person specifically can bring so much to a certain song.
Yeah.
And so we kind of just recorded it from my producer Matt his apartment and we just put it all together and built it over the months. And it's so I think that's really cool. A lot of my songs have been like that where we've just done it like from my cottage or from wherever. And I think that's a really cool way. There's like this low pressure doing it. You just have fun while you're
Yeah.
making music and you get the best product when you're just relaxed and having a good time
Mhm.
recording music.
That's so true. No, I love
Yeah.
hearing that though because it is kind of like that sometimes where things just kind of have
Mhm.
to take their time and it's almost like you build up this anticipatory love like you were talking about with sharing it. I'm so glad
Yeah.
that you told me all about that recording process.
I
Tell me.
think
Yeah,
too,
go ahead.
like
Yeah.
if there's anything I've learned about this music career is you have to be patient. Patience is a very important skill to learn. And so, and I've learned to trust the process. That is the biggest thing I think I've ever taken away when people are like, trust me, trust me. Like, no, no, I'm full in. Like, I'm a trust the process girly. Like, we are here. And patience and trusting is very important with the people you work with.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's great to know that you have a support system and a group of people that kind of love to work with you and that you love to work with, because that is a big part of it, right? Like having the right
Huge.
people, yeah, in your corner.
It's like your own little family.
Exactly. Oh, I love
Yeah.
hearing that. So, well, and talking about more music that's coming out, I know that you said before we got on the call that you were going to release a lot more music in the coming year. Is
Hmm.
there any like teases or any little sneak peeks you have to share?
Yes, there is. I actually think there's the song that will be coming out following this in the early new year is like pretty much like done and good to go. So, and I'm just so excited about this. I think I'm like, maybe I'll post a little teaser on Instagram in the next like, couple of weeks. But it's again, actually, it's funny you asked me about like a complete opposites. This one is the next one that's coming out is a very like back to like an ain't that bad kind of
Yeah.
style where it's like we don't need him song, like
Mhm.
female empowerment, like break up, living your best single life.
Yes.
Like just another fun, like feeling yourself,
Yeah.
having a good time and being happy with yourself and where you are
Mhm.
song. So lyrically the complete opposite of the worst thing.
Oh, perfect. Okay. No, no.
Yeah.
That's very cool to hear that like things kind of come and go and back and forth,
Come and go.
and I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice
It's
little
a journey.
weave
It's a
into the
story.
yes into this collection of songs. I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One big old quilt that we're weaving. So tell me, okay,
Exactly.
I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about upcoming shows that you have in the future.
Hmm.
So tell me right now, are you in Nashville? Are you back home or?
No, I'm back in Toronto right now.
Cool.
I got back middle of October.
Mhm.
So I've been home now, I guess, for a month-ish, just
Wow.
over a month, and
Okay.
I'll head back in the new year before things get chaotic and crazy for the summertime.
Yeah.
Um, but I tell you, it's starting to get really cold, and it's been well, it's like starting to snow every so often. And I'm like, Toronto, Nashville sounds a lot better than Toronto right now.
I know exactly what you mean though. Like I was trying to plan a trip up to Nashville. I guess this is like at the end of December, early January, and I was like, I am worried about about the cold. But then I couldn't imagine like being in Toronto.
It's
I don't think
just
I've ever
like
been.
oh, well, you know what? I will say, when it's snowy on Christmas and New Year's, it's so like you're like, oh, it's like a winter wonderland. Like it really
Magical.
feels
Yes.
right,
Yes.
exactly. And I love waking up to like snow on Christmas. But right now it's like the rainy, gross, could snow, could be just a really cold rain, gloomy every day, like leading into you know that it's coming really soon.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, it's just so gloomy. It's so sad. Like a nice winter day, I'm all for because you got to still have like the little Canadian at heart and go
Right.
skating on the lake and do all like the fun winter things. But for the most part, I'm pretty good without it. I'm like, oh, good.
No, that's really funny though, and I know where
Yeah.
you're coming from. I really do. So, okay, talking maybe something to warm us up a little bit. We can talk a little bit
Yes.
about like festival season because I know we've got several
Woo.
months until that gets here, but you've got some
It's
pretty
crazy.
interesting shows coming up during that time, right?
Yeah. And this summer, like this past summer was also pretty great. I got to this past summer actually, I opened up for Walker Hayes, which was a really awesome
Yay!
experience. And so, yeah, it was so cool up in Thunder Bay, which is like
Yeah.
13 hours away from Toronto. Like in itself, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But when I had been asked to play that festival, I actually, first of all, I couldn't believe it. I always just like, you put yourself out there and you just kind of like, you're like, if I don't hear back, like, it's okay. Like, like one step forward, right?
Yeah.
And when I got that, I was like, whoa. I was like, that's pretty cool. So I got to fly out to Thunder Bay and play in this really awesome festival. And like throughout the whole weekend, there was Brothers Osborne played, Dean Brody, who's a really amazing Canadian
Yeah.
country artist. And so it was just so cool to get to be a part of that. And but then this coming summer, I've already announced, and there's other shows still coming, but I've already been announced as one of the artists for the Hollywood Country Jamboree, which is featuring two
Wow.
Canadian country singers, Tyler Joe Miller and Jason McCoy, who is like Canadian country
Yeah.
legend. Like,
Oh
we
my
love him.
gosh.
And so it's just nice to always have something to look forward to. And then there's a couple other things I can't, I'm not, can't,
That's right.
shouldn't
Right.
say,
Right, right,
right?
right.
But if anybody follows me on socials, like, there's more stuff even coming up in January, like some really cool shows that I get to be a part of, even like leading into festival
Oh,
season. So next year is already looking very exciting. And, sometimes that's the motivation you need, because this music thing is tricky and it's easy to get down on yourself sometimes. But then, you have these opportunities and you just realize you get to share music with people. And those are the moments that they keep you going. So and live, being on stage, that's my favorite part of getting to do music.
yeah.
So I'm very excited for next year.
That was going to be like one of my next questions. Do you have like a favorite performance of all time? And then I'll get into some more questions too. Yeah. Do you
Ooh,
have like a favorite show that you've ever done?
I don't know. Oh man, that's a really good question. I like I said, I love being on stage, and um, we do a lot of writers rounds back here in Canada as well, and those are
Cool.
just always so special to be a part of, because like the room is silent and everyone's there listening
Yeah.
to you. But I think I would say um, the Country on the Bay, the one that I was talking about previously, that one I didn't know what to expect going into that, because that was my first like major country festival that I've played like to that scale. And I was like, oh my gosh, these people are gonna have no clue who I am. And like, that's okay. But I'm like, oh my goodness, like, do I just like, I'm going up there, gonna play them all my songs, and I'm like, I hope they like me. Like, you just want to like be able to connect with people, and it's
Yeah.
nerve-wracking.
Aw.
And it was a really crazy cool experience, because everyone that was there, like, there was this whole group of people that had come all the way up to the stage, and they were just like screaming every single word of my songs back to me. And I was like,
Uh,
what? And I was like, that's like, I don't even know what to do with myself. I was like, that's a pretty special experience. And it's just one of those things that, it's that reassurance that, because for me, I know like a lot of people probably feel the same way about this too, but I love listening to music because I can find a way to relate to it. And, it's like that person is saying exactly how I'm feeling. And so that's
yeah.
always been something that's important to me. And like the songs that I put out, I'm like, I want to be able like that it's my story, but somebody else can find their story in the lyrics and in the song. And I was like, that was kind of that reassuring, like, check mark moment where I was like, okay, like, they like it. That's good. We're doing something.
No, that feels like such an ethereal experience almost, because it's like you
Yeah.
having those words just sung back to you. It's like, I don't know.
It's special. It's a very, very
Yeah.
special. I don't know if it ever gets old. It's a very like, even just like when it's one person you're watching, you're like, okay, I've been able to connect with one person, and that's really cool.
Aw. So tell me, okay, thinking back to, you were just talking about how you love listening to music. Who is at the top of your playlist right now? Like, if you were to say you're really listening to this, what you got?
Yeah. Um, okay, I have two. Well, not like two different like categories, I guess.
Yeah.
Currently, I'm really, really into what Alana Springsteen and Ashley Cook, like this new like pop
Yes,
country
girl.
thing that they're doing is
Mhm.
really, really awesome, and like in a
Yeah.
modern sense. But then like to my core, I have loved Taylor Swift like since the day that Tim McGraw, right? Tim McGraw was on the radio the first time I heard it. I was like, I love this woman. And so Taylor's always at the top of my playlist, and I
Yay!
love Taylor. Love Taylor. Anybody that has known me and grown up with me, like, never been a secret. I just think, and again, like going back to how you like find it, like even when you're that young, like there was something so special about Taylor Swift that you're like, I understand everything that she's saying. And
Yes.
she's so great. Like, how can you
Yeah.
not love her?
How do you feel about Taylor and Travis Kelce together?
Oh, I'm all about it. I'm like, yes. It's actually funny. Because my younger brother loves sports, and
Mhm.
he's like a secret Swiftie. Like, he won't admit that he loves Taylor, but
I think
like I'll
most men
listen to him
are.
like,
Like, I really do. Yeah.
right. I will say, whenever I cover Taylor at shows or festivals and stuff, I always look out and it's always like the 20-year-old men that are screaming their hearts out. And I'm like,
Exactly.
don't tell me you don't love her. Like, don't tell me that. But he'll even send me like all these Taylor and Travis TikToks and stuff. And I'm like, see, like the world's on board. I just think, and I think like there's like this general consensus on social media of how happy she looks. And
Mhm.
as like a true Taylor fan, you're like, you just want Taylor to be happy. And
Yes.
so I don't watch football, but I've watched, I will admit, and everyone's been like, oh my God. I have watched some of the games just to see if Taylor's there, just to be that person. Like, I wonder. Woo,
Yes.
sports. Like,
Yay, sports ball. Exactly. No, I
yeah,
love that.
exactly. Oh, it's so funny.
Oh man. Oh yes, I feel you though. No, I
Yeah.
agree. Well, and just listening to like some of the music that you've put out, I can hear the influence from Taylor.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
That makes me so happy. There's so much. That's so
well,
great.
because even like beside, in some of her like I don't want to say overproduced, but like heavily produced albums,
Totally.
She's still the songwriter first, and I think that's kind
100%.
of where. Yeah, I think that's kind of how I feel about your writing too. Is that like
Thank
you have
you.
really great recordings, but overall, like the lyrics themselves kind of speak true to a lot of hearts out there. Yeah, of course.
Wow, thanks. I'm blushing. Thank you. That's
so
really
glad.
nice.
Yeah.
That's like the nicest, honestly, like the nicest thing anybody has ever said. And that's always been something, because especially in country music, right? Like it's about, or not like about, like, I don't mean it's about this, but people relate to it because of the storytelling. And I think like that's what we all strive for when we're trying to be in country music, and you just want to tell your story. And yeah, that's so nice. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Paige, we have had an awesome conversation today.
Yes.
I tell you,
Thank you.
I know. I'm so glad that you reached out, because I am so happy to hear more about you. Tell me, okay, is there anything that you would like to promote or shout out before we hop off the call today?
That's a good question. I mean, there's like so many things, right?
I know, I'm sorry.
I would say, I would say like just coming off releasing a brand new song. Like obviously, if anybody is listening, to please listen to The Worst Thing. I think that would be very, very wonderful and help a gal out. And I just think too, like as I saw that I've been seeing this on social media recently. There's this like post going around right now where they just like released however many charts, and there's not a single female on the chart. So if anybody's listening, just to check out your female country artists and women out there who are putting out really cool songs and not getting as much recognition as they should be. So support the ladies in country music, as well as my big point for today.
Right. Well,
and always, not even just today, always.
Always. You're right, though, because we just had like a CMA Entertainer of the Year who is female for the first time.
Right.
Since Taylor Swift.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know. We have a ton of amazing females out there making some great music. And
agreed.
It needs to be heard. So I'm so happy that I
agree.
can kind of, share your story as a songwriter and share other female stories out there. Because, like, it's important to me. And I appreciate what you do, and you're awesome. And
thank you.
I really enjoyed this interview today.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun.
Listeners out there, go check out The Worst Thing. Stream it on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to great songs. And make sure that you follow Paige Rutledge on social media. Find her anywhere that you have social media. This was Leigh with Coda Country, and you heard it here on Coda Country Chats. Thanks, Paige.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.